Good afternoon and happy Sabbath. Welcome to our evening study. Thank you for joining, and I pray that you'll be richly blessed. We will start with a hymn. Please turn your hymnals to hymn number 272. Please turn to hymn number 272. Hymn number 272, Give Me the Bible. Give me the Bible, star of gladness gleaming, to cheer the wanderer alone and tempest tossed. No storm can hide that peaceful radiance beaming, since Jesus came to seek and save the lost. Give me the Bible, holy message shining, thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Give me the Bible when my heart is broken, when sin and grief have filled my soul with fear. Give me the precious words by Jesus spoken, hold up faith's lamp to show my Savior near. Give me the Bible, holy message shining, thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Give me the Bible, all my steps enlighten, teach me the danger of these realms below. That lamp of safety o'er the gloom shall brighten, that light alone the path of peace can show. Give me the Bible, holy message shining, thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Amen. I'll now turn it over to Pastor Lloyd Grubb.
So good afternoon, everyone, again, and welcome back to our evening study, where we will continue our theme on entering into His rest, and I'm looking at the Day of Atonement and how it applies to rest and why it's important to enter into His rest. So let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you again for the blessings of your word and for the blessings, dear Lord, of being able to study and to receive, dear Lord, from the receive the words of life. May you bless us, dear Father, as we study together for Christ's sake. Amen. So I'm continuing my theme here, entering into His rest. And I'll see what happened here. I'm just trying to grab my Bible. As I laid it on here. Okay. And okay, great. So if you turn with me again to Hebrews chapter 4. Hebrews chapter 4. And my topic is the Day of Atonement. And I'm just taking some lessons from the Day of Atonement and how does it apply to entering into His rest. And so Hebrews chapter 4, verse 1. Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into His rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. So there is a rest that is promised to us, and there is a possibility that we could come short of entering into this rest. And so we want to be able to enter into a rest, and we don't want to come short, because one thing in this life, whether it be looking at guilt, looking at the burdens of this life, looking at people being disappointed in this life and having an experience where they're just beaten down by life, is that one thing one can say is that word rest, having a Sabbath, a Sabbata, Sabbath. Anything in these words express this idea of restfulness and peacefulness with the Lord. So notice here, for unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them. But the words preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. So it was not a matter of that, they couldn't be saved. People think that says grace is only in the Old Testament. Grace was offered in many ways. It is grace to not eat shellfish. It is grace for God to say to us the way we take care of our surroundings. They heard the word, and the word could have profited them, but it didn't profit them because it was not mixed with faith. So when we understand this, and I'm going to, as I say, combine some of the things that we talked about this morning and for midday service and now, that the rest is available and you can enter into rest and experience rest. But if the words that are supposed to give you rest does not find profit, it does not benefit you, then you will not get the rest that the Lord promised. So it's not a matter of, that they couldn't be saved in that time, or we can't be saved now. Is that people want to do life a certain way that does not give them rest. As I always say, they labor to labor instead of labor to rest. And so we labor to rest. You labor and you preserve your health, and you do certain things because if life lasts, you're going to hit retirement age. You're going to hit the older age where you cannot work as hard. So you labor to rest. Verse 3 says, for we which have believed do enter into rest. As he said, I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. So when we believe, right, when we believe, we enter into rest. Because what I've learned over the years is that when I do life the way the Lord said, that because I believe what the Lord says it, I believe it, and that's good for me, and I do it, I find that I have a restful life, a restful mind, my conscience is at peace, my mind is at peace, my experience is peaceful. But when I do life and I want to ignore the way God would say to do life, I have no rest. I have no rest with health, I have no rest in my being, I have no rest in my experience with others. But the relationships and everything become peaceful. And I've learned to follow Christ's way. Christ says something like this, that Paul writes that if a person is subverted and is rebellious after the second admonition, you walk away from them. Christ says after the second and third evidence, you walk away, you walk, right? You let them go. What I've learned is that I've never been in a situation where I break that principle and it worked out. Never. For all the years I've lived. When a person have a certain mindset, you talk to them, whatever, and they don't want to repent, you have to let them go. And when they figure it out, they'll come around, you'll find out. And then what it is, they give you peace. And I've learned the people who have made up their mind that they're going to be hell-bent on doing wickedness, you have to let them go, like old Paul says, and follow the Bible. And what happens is that you get rest. Because all the extra noise and calamity and troubles and trials just go away. And so we want to be able to believe. We believe the word of God. There's things that people fight with the word of God and question it. And I find out there's nothing wrong. People always use the extremes. And I find, what are they being extreme about? If you follow what the word of God says, you get a better experience. Amen? Better experience. Now, notice here, he says, for he spake of a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and God did rest the seventh day from all his works. So the 7-day Sabbath, what we're experiencing right now is a rest from all the works. The only person that work on the Sabbath, so to speak, work is the Levi or the priest. So God rests the 7th day. So this is why I was pointing out that when we talk about, like for the midday service, when we talk about worship, we cannot remove the idea of rest, a Sabbath day rest, where we're resting from all of our works. If God is perfect in a perfect world with Adam and Eve, and they rested, how much more we need rest in a world filled with turmoil. How many people today, they're going to be part of a shooting, part of disaster, and what they need for themselves is rest. So notice the Sabbath becomes an important key to understanding rest and understanding righteousness. So for that reason, I'm going to read a few more verses here. I want to go in a few minutes to Leviticus, and I want to go to the Day of Atonement. The reason why, because we have to look at the Sabbaths and Sabbath when we talk about rest. Because if we don't understand Sabbaths and the sabbatical system, we don't understand what God was trying to do for Israel, which is what He's trying to do for us in these last days, to give us rest so we can have peace. Notice here, and in the place again, if they shall enter into my rest, seeing therefore it remaineth, that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. Again, he limited a certain day, saying, in David, today, after so long a time, as it is said, today, if you will hear his voice and harden not your heart. For if Jesus or Joshua had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day? There remaineth therefore a rest for the people of God. For he that is entered into his rest, he also has ceased from his own works, as God did from his. Let us labor therefore to enter into that rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. So there was things in the Old Testament that the Hebrews were supposed to do as part of the rest. There were practices that they were supposed to practice according to the rest. And a lot of the practice has to do with 7. On the 7th day, which is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God, you take a rest once a week. On the 7th year, which is the year of release, you take a rest. The land gets a rest, everybody gets a rest. The economy kind of go on the fruits of the first 6 years, the 6 years prior. On the 49th year is another year of release, because every 7th year there will be year of release. But on the 50th year is what we call Jubilee, or the Day of Atonement. And on that day, the people of God will rest another year. So the 49th to the 50th year would be rest. So when we talk about rest, a lot of it has to do with 7. 7 is represented in the biblical system as completion. It's a completed work. It's something that is bound off. So normally we say you bind off the work. That means you're working on something and there's 1 or 2 little pieces need to be done. The work is done for the most part, probably 90-something%, but you need to bind it off. So you do that little piece. So the Sabbath is the completion of the week. It's not the majority of the week. It's only 1/7 of the week. But it ties off the rest of the week, the first 7 days. And it is connected with the first 7 days, because one of the things you do on the Sabbath is you support the work of the gospel, which is your increase from the work week. You bring it, a percentage of it, to support the work. So 7 is connected, and 7 is connected, what, as I say, with worship and with whatever God does, and God does is rest. 6 is connected with man and man's labor, or the creation of man. And so God rested on the Sabbath day. So with that in mind, I'm going to go now with you to Leviticus chapter 23. And I'm going to start at Leviticus chapter 23, verse 27. Verse 27, Leviticus chapter 23, verse 27. So when you look at this now is talking about the year of the Holy Convocation, which is the Day of Atonement. And all the Sabbath rest has this in common. And I want to just take some lessons and some ideas from here, just to indicate to you or show you how we enter into rest, and how the Day of Atonement points to some key factors that we can experience in our personal life today. Notice here, the Lord spake unto Moses in verse 26, verse 27, also on the 10th day of the 7th month. So this is towards the end of the agricultural cycle. Remember, it was an agrarian society up until 200 years ago. And the society primarily makes its income to do with things to do with food, right? And producing of that food. And it's on the 10th day of the 7th month, towards the end of the year, it shall be a holy convocation. So that means people gather together. So it has to do with relationships with each other and how it connects with God. And ye shall afflict your soul and offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. So in this Day of Atonement, in this end process of celebration, it's a celebration where it's a coming together, but it's not a ungodly celebration. It's a holy celebration. It's a holy convocation. So it's a ceremony involved, preaching, teaching, eating of food, celebrating people, connecting with people. And notice there, with all of that's happening, it gives you some indication firstly here. What do we get when we talk about enter into rest? Notice it says it's a holy convocation. So we kind of covered that this morning or this midday service. That holiness has to do with anything connected with God. And God sanctifies something. So this was a sanctified time for holiness that would have sanctified us, the believer. So that is part of getting rest, because the more sanctified we are, the more holy we are, the more we not break the commandments of God, is the more rest we have. Does that make sense? So the more we sanctified is the more rest we have. If you want rest in your life, what you need to do is rest from sin or rest from bad behavior, bad characteristics. And the more of that you have in your life is the more you're going to have rest. So part of enter into rest is a character development, because in order for you to keep a day holy, one has to be holy oneself. Because most of the thing that causes a day to be unholy is our unholy behavior. Same thing with worship. It's a holy convocation. So when people come to a convocation, you're going to expect them to look a certain way. You're going to expect them to carry themselves a certain way, prepare a certain way. If you ever sit in the audience and somebody smells stink or frowsy, that is, they're not prepared for the experience, right? They're not prepared for the experience. And so that's what it is. If you're in a situation, I remember somebody told me one time they were in church and they smelled something that made them almost want to puke, right? So that takes away the experience. So part of worship is you present yourself clean and presentable. And it's a holy convocation. That means it's not somewhere that people supposed to be drinking, getting drunk, having vomiting, fighting. Fist fights supposed to break out. They're not supposed to have somewhere you bring out the dancers. You're not supposed to be somewhere that it's, people having a wet t-shirt contest and stuff like that. So that's not that type of convocation. It's a holy convocation. So notice here. So part of entering into rest is to enter into a sanctifying experience. Another part of that also here you see is they shall afflict your souls. Now this affliction of soul is very important because it seemed to go against a convocation or festival or feast day. Because how do you afflict your soul in a time of feasting? How do you afflict your soul in a time when you get together with your friends? Normally you get together with your friends, it's supposed to be a lot of eating and drinking, right? And I've learned over the years that it is possible. It is possible to have an experience where the food is not destructive to you. The food is not your undoing. So part of entering into rest is to afflict your soul. But here's the thing. Think about this, and I was meditating on this idea here now, that how do you do it? Where when you think about it, normally when people think about vacation, this is not a vacation per se, because it's a holy convocation, but a vacation or a holiday, which we get it from the holy days, that word. Normally it's a time for drunkenness and debauchery. Normally it's a time for people to sin themselves. I remember a few years ago in southern Chicago, the police preemptively, I think it was 2019 or 2018, they preemptively arrested about 70 people or more. Either way, vice versa. They arrested a certain amount of criminals that are known criminals. And that weekend, after many years, they had a drop in the amount of killings that happened on that weekend in southern Chicago. So just by going out, grabbing some known violent criminals, arresting them on the Friday before, the Thursday, Friday leading up to the July 4th weekend. That was the weekend. So there was July 4th weekend coming, so they grabbed them in the week and arrest them and lock them in jail, because I think there's a legality where you can hold somebody for a certain amount of days. And then after that, you have to release them. And then what they do, they catch them like, you're catching a squirrel or something that eating up your garden. And then they release them in the following week. But that weekend, they had a drop. After many years of how many people died on the weekend by gun violence, you had a drop in gun violence, murders on that weekend, just by preemptively arresting them. So why do I say that? Because a lot of time when we think about time off, we think about sin. Sin is there. So here God says, no, you're going to have this time off, but I don't want you to use this time as a time period for fun and games. I want to use the time period for you to sanctify yourself and to better yourself and to bless the poor. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Very important, because all of our time periods in our society, sin goes up. More eating, more drunkenness, more cocaine, crack, heroin, meth get used, more marijuana, more rapes going on, more murders, more gun violence happen. All of that is tied in to time off. When you think about what the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah was, it was idleness and fullness of bread. So they have money, but their money didn't translate into and they say it didn't strengthen the hand of the poor. So their money didn't translate into the poor being blessed. Their money translated into the poor being cursed. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And their money translated into being gluttonous, and their money translated for them to be idle. So imagine now at the 49th year, at the 50th year Jubilee, because I'm combining a few things here, but I'm talking about the Day of Atonement. And in these holy convocations, God says, number one, I want you to be holy convocation. Then number two, I want you to afflict your soul. Because when we afflict our soul, we control the food that we're eating or cut back on the food we're eating. And then later I'm going to talk about and to help the poor. If this is done, you would find in your personal life that your downtimes can be very profitable. And it's not destructive to you. Time off for many people is destructive. That means they're going to be drunk or high on some drugs. Or they're going to be raping somebody or murdering somebody. And as I say, we are weeks away from the Independence Day celebration. But watch normal Independence Day celebration. There's more murders, there's more gang violence, there's all these things going on. People have time off. One thing I can say, I was thinking about this also when I was thinking about this text, because I should have entitled this Atonement and Jubilee and whatever, but there's only so much I can put in the title. I was thinking about this when I was thinking about this, that how last year the murder rate and mass murder rate dropped for the second quarter. Everybody panicked and they stayed in their home because they were afraid of COVID, and by just taking that break, the numbers dropped. But the moment the people started coming out of their holes, the killing started. And this first 2 quarters in 2021 has been a bumper crop of shooting. Because now they're back out and they're not fearful of COVID, but they're willing to go murder each other. So when we talk about the Sabbath, any of the feast days, the Passover, all these things, the Lord was very specific to Israel. I don't want you to be like the rest of the nations. I want you to be able to convocate, come together with others. I want you to be able to eat, but I want you to afflict your soul. I want you to ask for forgiveness, seek to bless others. This is all part of afflicting the soul. Make wrongs right. I want you to have a time where you can focus on your intellectual, your emotional, your spiritual experience, and not so much on your carnal. So very important there. So afflict soul is something that is important with the Day of Atonement, important with the Jubilee, important with the Sabbath. All these things has to do with not rioting, not just riotous, reveling, partying, going crazy. None of that. Notice here. An offering made by fire unto the Lord. So when we talk about offering made by fire, what are we talking about? Is something that costs you. Because to do all these things as sinners is not natural in our fallen nature. It's against our nature. It's against our nature to be selfless. I saw a piece on the news, you can check it out, where there's a 3-year-old asks for a cake to be made. You're laughing because you saw it too. I didn't know you saw it. But the 3-year-old, so you can know it's in her nature. She asked for a cake to be made for her birthday. And I think it's her aunt she asked to do it. And she wanted the scene on the cake be a replication of the Lion King cartoon movie where the lion died. Mufasa died. So they made it for her because she thought if you make that that cake with that scene, everybody would be so sad that they didn't want to eat the cake, and then she could have all the cake herself. She could keep eating the whole cake. So at 3, she figured out such a complex idea, because that's complex. Adults do that type of stuff. You know, adults will take something and lick it so that nobody can eat it. But you don't think children would figure it out at 3. So probably we have a little genius there that they need to say, man, this person is probably a genius. Because at 3, she figure out, if I could duplicate that scene in the cake, nobody, they'll feel so sad that they won't eat the cake, and I get to eat all of it. Naturally selfish. So when God is saying this, God is saying, I want you to deal with the selfishness. I want you to make an offering made by fire. Because for people to give up on that hard-earned cash, they will hold on to it to death. Notice, most people will die before they turn over some of their inheritance to people. They'll hold on to it, or they're sitting there in the bank. And then the loved one that they're going to give it to when they drop dead, you're going to get it off my dead body, is suffering and is in need of it, and they say, no, you're not getting that until I'm dead. But I can't have no use for it. Or they'll sit there and they would even deny themselves food so that they can keep the money in the bank and then die because they're malnourished. There's a lot of older people dying because they're malnourished. They have no good nutrients in their body. But they have a lot of money. And that's the problem. So God said, I want you to make an offering. And the offering has to be made by fire. God costs you something. And when it costs you something and you say, did that hurt? Probably that's what I should do every midday service, where we could do tithe and offering. Did that hurt? Is it painful? Because it has to cost. When it's easy, oh man, the money. You see, normally, guess what happened? You have somebody that got, I saw this thing where this young man was in Florida at a graduation, and he just got a contract from an album. He just got a contract for music, to produce music at 17, 18. And he's at the concert, and he had a wad of cash, and he's making it rain at the graduation. And as he making it rain at the graduation, the police came and arrested him, and then he turned over the rest of the cash he had to his father, and so forth. And I'm thinking about it and I say, look at that. He's young, he got a contract, he's going to make some big money, I guess. He says he's a rapper. And he's making it rain. And I'm thinking probably MCM are a few people who one time was making it rain who want some of that money. Right? Because that money is going to go like butter against sun. It's going to melt, it's going to disappear. A fool, the Bible says, and his money shall soon be parted. So he don't know, people are like, wow, look at him. But he's a fool, and he's going to lose that money because that money is going to go like butter again. So easy come, easy go. So that money, you can't make it rain because there's a lot of money coming to him. But if he not run out of money, you think he's going to make no money rain? If he start going broke, he's going to get selfish. But to show off, so God said, now, when you make an offering by fire. So when we take those components so far of entering into the rest, these components help us to be able to enjoy now. This is my point now. Enjoy the fat of the land without destroying ourselves. Right? It makes us able to enjoy a holiday, so whatever you want to call it, a holiday or holiday, a vacation, some retirement without destroying yourself by lack of self-control. And you can enter into rest, and the rest doesn't become your undoing. Because, normally they say, when the devil finds work for idle hand. When people are idle and not better to do, they start sinning. This pastor said it this way, say, when a plane is about to crash, nobody is on there thinking about any type of sin. You name it, sitting there thinking about, man, I wish I could steal, rob a bank. The only thing they're thinking about doing is to survive. Or they're hoping that the plane doesn't drop on the sky and they die. But when we have a lot of free time, remember David's sin was when he was not fighting the front lines. He was at home and he saw it and said, man, I don't think to do. He got bored, I guess. So we find this process is part of the process that we have to partake of. Now somebody will say, well, why is this important now? Because I believe historically we're living in the antitypical Day of Atonement. We live in a time period where servile work is not necessary, where you can do a few different things and put some labor in and make phenomenal money. And then you can enjoy the fat of the land.
And we see the society around us, they have experienced wealth. They say no generation of people have experienced so much wealth than the generation that's living now. But what does that translate into? It have translated into love of money. It has translated into obesity. It has translated into mass murders. It has translated into people hoarding wealth. It has translated into a lot of wars because people get greedy. It's translated in so much bad because now they have fullness of bread, but they eat the bread. So Christ said, when there's fullness of bread, I want you to do something for me. Don't eat as much bread. Afflict your soul. When there's a lot of money, Christ said, make an offering made of sacrifice, made of fire. And I want you to practice holiness. Because normally the more money is the more you think, if I have this money, I'm going to spend some of that money. But where you going to spend it on? Because a lot of the time, the things that you have to spend big money on is things that are either very luxurious or very sinful. So when we follow this process, we can be blessed and have rest. Come on now. We can be blessed and prosper and not make it get to our heads and not make it trip us up. And this is important for us to do because when we follow this principle, we find that we don't have to end up like those who have gone before us, where a little money got to their head. A little blessing got to their head. And all of a sudden, they started to eat all kind of weird foods because now they have money so they can start eating alligator flesh. A little money make them start to be able to forget about the poor. Notice, it's not true because most Republicans are in southern poor states. People say, oh, somebody's Republican and they're red states, they're whatever. But most of those states are the poor states in the country, so I don't get it. But they will start saying, oh, no taxes for the poor. And it's anything the Democrats do is socialism. Yeah, but most of those states are some of the poorest places in the country. Some of the places are third world nations, really, or states. But what it is, the problem is they're not blessed because they don't follow these principles. Think about this. Most of those areas are the most obese areas in the country. Most of those areas have the lowest income in the country. Most of those areas have almost all the mass murders, mass shootings happen in those areas. Most of those areas are very religious, but they are very hateful and racist and backward. So again, why? Because when you make an offering by fire, when you have a holy convocation with others, and when you afflict your soul, you don't become greedy, and then your cup runneth over, you get blessed. The blessing is in becoming a blessing. And that's why in a hard time period, this is a message that need to go to places like Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, not just in New York and New Jersey. The blessing comes by you doing what God says when the blessings are possible. But when people go against this, they get cursed. We keep reading now in verse 28. And ye shall do no work in the same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God. So the focal point of the Day of Atonement, the focal point of the Jubilee is for the things I'm doing is for me. Now, if I make enough offering, I think it's doing it for somebody else. But I'm doing it for me. It's for my soul. So notice here in Hebrews 4, we read that you should enter into rest and you should cease from your own work. How I understand that is simply that I'm not going to do life the way I think about it. Because the way I think about it is going to make me depressed and suicidal. The way I think about it is going to make me selfish and going to make me hateful and going to make everything, because the human nature in its selfishness makes it that says all for me. Think about the little girl at 3. At 3, she already messed up. She was big time messed up and she don't even know. She'll never be happy in marriage and life unless she change. Unless she find Jesus. Because she figured out selfishness and to express it in a very creative way at a young age. That's a little Karen coming up. Because what a Karen is somebody that they see somebody in the neighborhood, they get all hyped up and stuff like that. It's all for me. So in this process, what it is that I can't do life my way. I have to cease from my own thinking and my way of thinking. Because my way of thinking is all for me, not for you. God says, no, what you need to do something for him, but you're really doing it for yourself, and do for others, you're really doing it for yourself. Give an offering. Afflict your soul. Stop your own works. But somebody like, I've worked, I need to work, I need to do it. Listen, you have 6 years to labor. And at the 7th year, you need to take a sabbatical. At the 49th year, you need to take another sabbatical, and then another, and 50th year. God said, don't worry about it. I'll take care of you. It takes faith to believe that you could stop working for a year and God could take care of you. But the thing that is obvious to me is that you had 6 years to labor. So I've said over the years, and I'm trying to get myself on the system. I really believe in the system. I'm not being able to break it yet, but I'm working on it. Me and tomorrow, we're working on it. Right? Is that I believe that what we should have done is be on a 7-year cycle, financial cycle. And that to me would be better. So the 7th financial year cycle, you work 6 and then take 1 off. So your aim is when you come on to indebtedness and certain things that you don't push yourself so far beyond a certain point. Because what it is, you take things in cycles. So instead of you buying, you go from your parents' house to a full bread and butter house, 200 and something thousand. If you're in America, the average house is 200, I think, somewhere in the teens. Probably gone up since. I've looked at it since last year because house prices shot up last year. So I don't know what the new prices are. You would probably go from a house to a rented apartment to a condo to a townhouse to a house. So you take it in increments. But most people sometimes go straight from the parents' house to a house, or from parents' house to a townhouse. And they jump multiple steps in the process. And what I do is that they have to extend themselves 30 years out. And they have to work to pay that off. But most of that is interest. So instead of saying, let's pay less interest and take it in strides, in steps. Or you go from, as an example, there's nothing fixed here, I'm just talking about the number of money, the amount of money you're making, how much you're paying. Why? So you go probably from your parents' house to an apartment, a small apartment, probably apartment in somebody's house, probably rooming, whatever it is. And you go from there to either a townhouse, a condo, or a doll house, a little house, a house that basically is like a one-room house. And then from there, whatever. But that would be an affliction. For many people, that would be a fiction. See? But what it is you're doing is, I'm going to cut the amount of interest I pay so that I go on a different cycle. So when I learned this, I was already in the process. And I realized, man, that would be a better system. Yeah, you see, so what I'm doing, I'm stop working. I'm stop doing it my way. I enter in by belief. And so for me, my process is to get to that process because I'm already in process. And by the time I really solidly came to a point where I believed, I said, this method is better. I was already in process. And so I said, oh, I'll have to work towards that method. But as I teach, I will teach a young person coming up, don't take on heavy amount of debts because that will be stroking your pride. Take debts on, if you're going to do a car payment, no, the car payments are stretching out, go 6 years, the most, 5 years if you can, 3 years if you have the money. Whatever you do, don't stretch debts out too far because the longer you stretch out, yeah, you get a better, bigger vehicle, but what you do, you get also a more interest. Use credit unions, don't use regular banks. Find credit unions, credit card. If you have to do credit, you do it the cheapest way you possibly can do. You fix your credit before you do credit, things like that. So in the affliction situation, it is seemingly against the sinner, but it's for the sinner. Because our carnal nature, we don't see life the way we're supposed to. So we see it, oh, there's some Old Testament principle that's there. And you're thinking, wait a minute, but it's a principle from God. I better investigate. See the difference? I see it different. The pagan and heathen and foolish, they read this text and say, oh, this is a stupid Bible. I read this and I say, man, this is something from God. But it doesn't go with my thinking. My thinking, I want it all right now. But God is saying, no, don't do it that way. And then when you don't do it that way, I start to discover things that I never would have discovered in the Word of God. And I saw seen things in there that has been a blessing to my life. So I tell people I practice things in the Bible that I never even preach. I read it, I believe it, I practice it, but I never done a sermon on it because I just believe it and it worked for me. And I'm like, this is amazing, this really works. So we cease from our own labor as God ceased from his labor. We stop and we say, wait a minute, I need to think about how am I doing life, right? So no work that same day, right? It's a day of atonement. We're in the untypical day of atonement. We don't do server work anymore. We have figured out to make machines do our work for us.
So for me, I'm invested, and I'm getting more invested in, listen, if it's a machine to do a work for me, I'm getting the machine. I'm not doing the work. If I can afford a machine, I buy the machine. How am I going to do the work? It don't make no sense. If I'm here, why do I invest so heavily into streaming and will be investing heavier in streaming? Because I could talk to a person here, but I can multiply it and talk to 1,000 homes if necessary. I make the machinery do the work for me. Does that make sense? Because I'm doing the work and then multiplying myself. So we do that because in this antitypical Day of Atonement, hopefully we have studied with me before, so you know what I'm talking about. From 1844, machineries have replaced the hard, servile, beat-down time, and it proved from 1844 that we've been in an antitypical Day of Atonement. We did a point where we don't do servile work, and in the same day we cease from our work. Notice verse 29. For whosoever soul it be shall not afflict in the same day, he shall be cut off from among his people.
Now, I thought, to be honest, that this is only in a religious context.
But I've noticed that those who like to live the lifestyle of the Sodomites, they get cut off. Whether it be by AIDS or coronavirus, whether it be by meth, crack, heroin, fentanyl, they cut off. Because you see, they want to live the party life. See, we live a sober life. Part of the afflicted of soul is the sobriety that we live. We eat a very healthy diet. Part of the afflicted of soul is the diet. Remember, Daniel did an affliction diet, but he ate. This does not mean you don't eat no food, right? Because remember, it's a feast day. It's a Day of Atonement. It's a celebration. It is the type of food and the way you eat. Notice a lot of people, the Bible will say that they will cut down the stoutest of them. Because what it is, they're not controlling their eating, they have no temperance of what they eat, so they end up taking out with diseases and stuff. So literally, I read this at first, I didn't get it until I saw realize in society. We're in the antitypical Day of Atonement. I remember I read a book, Back to Eden, by Jethro Kloss, I think his name. And he was showing how within his lifetime in the early 1900, how people got bigger. So what it is, we started having refrigeration, we started having industrial farming, and people just got humongous because they weren't afflicting their soul. So we are eating, but I've learned over the years through understanding Daniel and Ezekiel. Ezekiel 4, what's Ezekiel bread called again? Ezekiel 4:7. He said, make thou, Ezekiel 4:9, sorry, make thou a bread. And what is the bread? I think this is so powerful. You make the bread, is made with wheat, barley, lentil, I think it's millet and something else. Find it for me real quick if you don't mind tomorrow. I don't want to lose my place here. Now here's the thing. Only God knew that there was going to be a company and a bread that you can go buy, and it's a bread of affliction. Because remember, so the point is that Ezekiel had food. He didn't like he didn't have food. No, you don't have to give it to me. You could just read it.
Wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and fitches.
Fitches. So fitches, if you click your phone has that thing where if you click it, it give you what fitches is. Fitches is, I forget what fitches is. It doesn't give you your phone on, does it? Oh, okay, my phone do it. I'll tell you what fitches is. Let me grab my phone. My phone is out of my Bible. So anyway, so my point was, think about, that's the bread of affliction. But it's still bread. But what is that bread of affliction? It's good bread. That's a good bread. Now I know they hybridize the wheat and we're having problems with the wheat. But I want to show you how powerful that is. That bread is I think a 7-grain bread, right? And that bread will give you so much nutrients. Many people eat that bread because they want to keep regular. So it gives you good fiber, it gives you good protein, it gives you good all your basic nutrients, riboflavin, thiamine, niacin. That bread is a very well complex bread. And I'm thinking, by God's grace, we're making the kingdom. I meet Ezekiel. I say, Ezekiel, you know the bread that you write down? Somebody made millions of dollars off that bread. That bread there is a international known bread. And who would have thought? They pull it right there, the ingredients list right in the Bible.
Nutmeg flour?
No, it's not nutmeg flour. I'll tell you what it is. But I'll be there. Is Ezekiel 4:9, you say? So just a side note, but remember now, we're talking about Day of Atonement. They have to afflict their soul.
So it's not that you don't eat, it's that you eat is different. So when Daniel did the affliction diet, he did, oh, I messed up here. He did a similar thing where he went on food that would make him healthier. So remember, the affliction diet, or the diet when you're under stress, spelt. Boom, that's what it is, spelt. Thanks, Sister Tamara, for pulling up. So people put it's spelt in there, and I think they put millet and blah. So if you look at that bread, right, and you look at fishes is spelt. So today, think about it. What's one of the big flour they're using now? Spelt, right? And all these things listed there are things now that we're eating. But somebody said, but that's an affliction diet. Yeah, but if you understand what an affliction diet is by Ezekiel and Daniel, you find out the end result of it, they look healthier and their brain work better. See, it's the reverse of our natural thinking. My natural thinking, if I do things my way, is that I'm going to do things that I'm going to hurt myself. Think about the current fast food, non-affliction diet. It's cutting people off. There are people are dying of colon cancer, all kind of cancer. I was driving down today because I've been thinking about this a lot. And I was driving down and I passed a delicatessen on my way because for lunch we spent lunch with their terrors. And I was coming back down to the church here and we passed the delicatessen and I said, think about it. The National Institute of Health officially lists all delicatessen food as cancer causing. And I remember years back there was a natural doctor I used to deal with and he says he can't wait for the day that they label McDonald's and Burger King they comes with a label on it. Just like how you have a label for a cigarette, so this thing will kill you and cause you cancer, that they need to put a label on that. They probably should put it on the front, like a sticker on the front of, like a sign lit up, this food causes you cancer. So here we are, and I couldn't believe it that says 15 years probably after that doctor said that. This natural doctor said they should label those things cancer causing. That the National Institute of Health, not some independent body, not somebody that is out there in conspiracy theory world, but the government come out and said delicatessen food causes cancer, without a doubt. And I said, man, it wasn't so crazy after all what he said. But when I heard it at first, he sounded crazy. And he said it crazy. And I was like, man, that's a crazy thought. And then boom, here we are. The government came out and said, yeah, it's cancer causing. So when we go on affliction, it's the opposite to our thinking, but God knows what he's doing for us. He's saying, listen, I need to eat a healthier plant-based diet. I need you to eat food for your calories that you need. And when you do this, what it is, you're going to enter into rest. You're going to be able to sleep 6 hours, 7 hours, and feel totally rested. If you get 9 hours sleep, you're going to feel like you just grew probably a new finger or a new foot or something. You feel great. But what is that coming from? The affliction, from temperance. And so we're in that time period where many people, which is ironic because I say the Philadelphia church was existing at the same time as the regular Christians, mainline Christian churches were doing slavery. The church of brotherly love and the church of hate existed together, the synagogue of Satan and the synagogue of God. So here we are in a time period where we're living in this time period where many people are on an affliction diet, while others are blowing up. It is fascinating, at best, to see how many people are blowing up because they're eating the diet that is running with pus and blood and lard and stuff like that. So notice in verse 30, almost there, verse 30 here, it says here, it says, for whosoever soul shall not afflict themselves. Yeah, I need to talk about verse 29 again. For whosoever soul it be that shall not afflict in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. So I just want to emphasize again that the cut off, we're seeing this. And I've seen this in church. I've seen over the years so many people in church who does not want an affliction diet, don't want to have any temperance, don't want to support the church with tithe and offering, don't want to do all these things. They get cut off both physically and from the church itself. Keep that in mind. I've been here long enough. Somebody could hear me say a statement like that and say, what are you saying? I have time on my hand, and if I don't look it Trust me, I have the time. I'll put in the time. I've been here for a few decades. Verse 30. And whosoever or whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in that same day, the same soul will be destroyed from among his people. Destroyed. Because there's a way that seemeth right unto a man. This is not spiritual. This is real. This is literally what's happening. But the end thereof is death, is destruction, and here it says it's being destroyed. And over the years, I've seen people who know better. Because remember, in the time of ignorance, God wink. But when a secular person understands this principle, and people who claim to be Christian don't understand, they need to be destroyed. They have to be destroyed. Because they're bad witness. They're false light. They're telling people, come over here, the righteous is over here. And when you come, it's a false light. They're fig leaves or fig trees. They have leaves but no fruit. That soul shall be destroyed because that soul is a false light. And we notice here, a whole section of the church have disappeared. They have just fallen out of the church altogether. Fallen out. The massive decline in church membership across North America is a testimony that here we have the good life. The money is flowing, the food is flowing, and instead of people being kind and help the poor, what they do, they go into foreign countries and attacking people and murdering them for the little they have. I find it amazing how the system we have here, people are so rich, and yet they'll take these rich people with their multi-billionaire, millionaire, and go attack poor people and rob them of what they have. So God said, I'm going to afflict them, I'm going to cut them off. So God is doing right. When I read that first, I was like, what is this saying? And then as the years roll by, I say, yeah, God is right. I agree with God in this. Because they don't afflict their souls. And yet, he says, whosoever doeth any work in the same day, because you're doing life your way. One need to stop from their own labor and take a break. And stop, but some people never want to stop. Watching my time here. So notice here, ye shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generation in all your dwellings. It shall be for you a Sabbath of rest. So remember now, before I keep reading there, it's a Sabbath of rest. So on Sabbath, we still have to move, right? In order for you to, in the Jewish system, they'll make sure that you can't walk too far. They have all kind of extra rules to try to make people don't work, so to speak. But when we're talking about no labor, the Lord is really talking about no servant, no hard labor. You just have to do something. You get up and prepare yourself for church and so forth. But the focal point is that you need to just take a break. And as I say, one of the topics I'm going to cover in the next few weeks is that the sinner has no rest for his soul. When a person is a sinner, they gain no rest. They can't stop. Over the years, we've worshiped with so many people, and I realized, you know what it is? It's not that they can't keep the Sabbath holy, they can't take a break. They can't stop. They can't just take a break from their way of thinking, their problems. As I say, when Sabbath comes, it's just good to know that says it's a cutoff. And whatever I was working on, I'm not going to work on it for 24 hours. Take a break. Because what happened, when I come back, the problem's going to still be there. Sometimes it get resolved, sometimes it get worse. So we take a break. So it shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and ye shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of the month of even, from even unto even, celebrate your Sabbath, right? And we just stop there. So when we're talking about enter into the rest, when we talk about the Lord says, come unto me all ye that labor and are heavy laden, I will give you rest. What we're talking about here is not the absence of doing anything per se, because the Lord says God worked even harder on Sabbath to answer the prayers of the saints. It's not the absence, it's just the way you're doing life, you need to stop. Because a lot of times the way we do life with our selfish ways and all that's about me, you end up putting yourself into more labor. So you have to stop and say, how do I approach this life? For years I remember I had to figure out, no, I think I'm going to do life, I'm going to end up like everybody else. So I need to figure out to do life differently. So we enter into that rest. As though Christ says, come unto me all that labor and heavy laden, I'll give you rest. Take my yoke. So when we think about a yoke, we think about a yoke as there's 2 cows or 2 ox and they're plowing. As the 2 ox are plowing, it's not that one ox do dead weight, right? And the other one have to both plow and drag the dead carcass. This is what most religion teaches. When we yoke up with Christ, we still have to do something. But what it is, the labor, still have to labor, becomes easier. Right? Even in religion, it works. Even in doing church, it works. Because I start off by saying, even when dealing with people who are like to run their mouth and cause trouble and fight and division and contention, you have to follow the Bible. Put them out. When you put them out, peace comes. You have to do life the way God says to do life. And so what it is, you're yoke up with Christ, and you say, God, my ways are not your ways. I would not do life this way. And God said, yeah, you have to cease from your labor. You have to stop. You have to afflict your soul. You have to do all these things. And when you do them, what will happen is that you'll get rest for your soul. Because my ways are not your ways. So you take my yoke upon me, and he says, you learn of me because I'm meek and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. Because God is meek and lowly in heart. So we try to take the humble way. So let the big guys, let they go and they eat the big steak. And let they die of the colon cancer. You say, I'm going to take the humble way. Let the big guys go out there and they do their boxing. Let they get thumping their head and kicking their head. With their kickboxing and stuff like that. Let them get the cauliflower ears. But you're not the biggest, toughest guy. And you keep your brain. You keep your ears. You keep your nose. And you can go through life and you can say, I don't have no cauliflower ears. I don't have no broken nose unless I fall on the stairs. And my brain is still there. It's not mush at 36. And somebody said, but you weren't the biggest and baddest. You weren't the hardest. I'm like, yeah, but I'm together. I still have my brain. But you can't show off what's your bragging rights. My bragging rights, I still have my brain. Let those who want to do the life where they don't want to afflict their soul and they want to get up every day and smoke weed and they want to take all the meth and the crack and all that type of stuff, let them do it. They're winning. Let them win. But you take the humble way. You're not going to live the big life. You're not doing the big party and stuff like that, but you still have your body, you whatever. I've come to appreciate being high in life and being able to have all my faculties working. My brain firing. It might be the meeker way and the humbler way, but it's the better way. It's the winning way. Let those who are out there partying, while they're partying, you're trying to figure out how to make some money. You're trying to figure out how to give some money, to bless somebody. And let them win. Let the gluttons of this world win. Let them win. Let them have all the food. The genetically engineered food, they're producing so much of it. Somebody have to eat it. Let them eat it. Let them eat all the stuff from Dow Chemicals. Let them eat all the stuff from Monsanto. But it's not for us. Because we're taking the humble way. Let them take the vaccination. Let them win that way. We're going to try to exercise and take care of our body and take some supplements. We're going to try to figure out to take care of our body naturally. Let them take it. And if it costs us our job, well, it costs us our job. But we're going to pray that God deliver us. But if God don't deliver, as the 3 Hebrew boy says, we ain't going to bow down to that mRNA, genetically engineer madness, these mad scientists. I remember I watched when I was young, Dr., what's his name? The doctor that produced Frankenstein. Not Einstein, but Frankenstein. Let them produce their Frankenstein in their society. But for us, we want our hearts to work. So we don't want no heart inflammation. We don't want our D-dimers go up. But somebody has to do that because, remember, somebody always did that. You watch the documentaries about every time the chemical industry and the drug industry damage people and maim people up. Well, somebody had to take the maiming, but why should you? So Christ says, listen, yoke up with me and go the humble way. You know, listen, I go into the store, I put on my mask. I'll put on my mask. And if they tell me if I don't get vaccine, I can't come to the store, I do online shopping until they do the mark of the beast. All right? I do it. I just need to figure out to get some box of fruits to me and stuff like that. I'm all right. I'm not taking their drugs. I'm not taking their crack. I'm not taking their cocaine. None of that. I'm taking the low road. Let them go the high road. Let them win. Let them keep winning with their genetic engineering. So, funny thing is that a few nights ago, after they had opened up the people to stop wearing masks, I went to Lowe's in the night. There's something I need to buy because I didn't want to go to the morning and get it. So I said, I'm going to run over to Lowe's at night. And I was in Lowe's, and I don't know, one or two persons that were white. Everybody black in Lowe's had on a mask. And I was like, this is the funniest thing because, you know, the biggest holdout right now in America is the black people. They don't want to wear, they don't want to take the vaccine because, you know, they've experimented so much on black people. They've filled us up with so much garbage as experiment. And so the blacks are like, listen, we don't want no more experiment in us. We don't want the vaccine. And so that was interesting to see because I was like, this is seem weird because I go into Lowe's and except probably think one or two people are white. Everybody had their face open, and then everybody that passed, about 5 people, me included, 4 more people passed were black. Everybody have a mask. I was thinking that's ironic. Like you are showing up yourself. But what we're doing, we go in the low road. We let them win. Let the cocaine addicts win. Let the marijuana people win. They're winning. They're legalizing marijuana every day. Let them win. Let them keep taking that nerve that destroy the nerve. Everybody I've known growing up in Jamaica that was smokers of marijuana, they're all nerve shot. They're slowed down and their brain don't work in sense. I've been in church many times. I'm listening to somebody, I'm thinking, you smoke too much weed. It's not the Bible, it's hard to understand. The weed destroy your brain. And so if the weed have destroyed your brain, what you do, you sort of take every day. I take this every day and I never smoke weed. I take things like ashwagandha. I take holy basil. There's certain herbs I take that will clarify my brain and make my brain work better. I take it to improve. A person who smokes weed, they need to be on some clarity herbs. They need to be on some adaptogen. Why? Because the brain is damaged. They need to be rebuilt. They need to take some St. John's wort, things to rebuild the nerves, to feed the nerves, because the nerves are shot. And so that's what we do. So somebody say, well, you know, I'm the big guy, I'm the bad guy, I take drugs. Well, take your drugs. I take some herbs, right? And I say we need to work our way from drugs. Big bad guy, take my vaccine. Take the vaccine. We ain't gonna stop you. But we taking the low road. Somebody say, man, you're weak. You need some beef. You eat your beef. I'll eat some tofu, some beans, some red lentils. I've been eating red lentils lately. It's nice. That's something I normally wouldn't eat too much, except probably I come here. And you take the low road and you follow the Daniel and Ezekiel system. You follow the prophets. And you will be blessed. I'm going to take a few verses before I close now, because I want to kind of tie this up now to Ezekiel, Isaiah chapter 58. Oh, so I say ashwagandha, I say St. John's wort, I say I think holy basil, you know, and so forth. These things I take on a daily basis. So this morning, first thing I wake up in the morning, I take some herbs for my brain. First thing I wake up in the morning. I do. Because if anything I want to be working is my brain. It's the thing that I think should be protected the most and should be fed. But I'm taking it not because of the drugs, but I'm taking it because I told people who have taken drugs and been damaged by drugs that you need to take these herbs daily. And you can't get it in their head. That whatever you're functioning from damage. You need to feed the mind and rebuild it. And it's doable, painstaking, and take time, but it can happen. And so what you do, you start taking daily some herbs to fix the brain. That has to do with brain and nerves. And you rebuild it. You just do it. It's automation. I just do it every day. And something like today, I have to do it because I know I'm talking all day. And so I'm taking ginkgo biloba every day. I take gota cola every day, bacopa monera every day, ashwagandha every day, hawthorn every day, and schisandra every day. I take these herbs every day. I take also herbs for circulation every day and herbs for energy every day. Every day. I want to build my heart, want to build my brain, and those things are 2 things that are very important, obviously, but who would have told you that, right? I'm telling you that. Anything to fix my brain and my heart. And somebody said, do you have a heart problem? No, I'm just taking it because I need my heart to be kicking 100% or more. I need my brain to fix 100% or more. But if you, and this is a personal, I'm advising you, not only as a pastor, but as somebody who's into herbs, from an herbology point of view, if you have done soft drugs or hard drugs, you need to be on these type of herbs daily. And if you do it, I guarantee you more than the National Institute of Health, you will have improvement that will surprise you. You will feel better. This is clinical. It's been proven by scientific research after scientific research. Go do the research on these things and you'll prove me that I'm right. and the scientists are right, because this is the research is out there by the National Institute of Health. Just follow them. Dr. Fauci won't tell you that, but he's the head of the National Institute of Health. And yet you go onto their website, you'll see the documentation for these herbs. So let me take you to a few verses of Isaiah 58, few verses to close off the thought. So when we enter into rest, there's a process. There's some more that we have to deal with. When we enter into rest, we're not doing servile work because we're not going to kill ourselves. And nobody's forcing us to kill ourselves. After 1844, around that time, slavery came to an end. We're not doing servile work because we're not laboring to labor. If you do drugs, alcohol, if you do prostitution, if you're a warmonger buying prostitute, you will labor to labor. You're just throwing away your money. If you eat fast food, you're laboring to labor. You're just throwing away your money. We eat slow food, we buy slow food, we cook slow food. Understand what I mean when I say slow food? It's not mechanized food. We eat natural food. If the food is genetically engineered, I don't eat papaya if I'm in America. I don't eat pineapple if I'm in America. Anything that's genetically engineered and being tampered by scientists, I don't eat their food. I don't believe what they're doing. The science is in. They're rubbish. Don't eat those food. You're wasting your money. I don't eat, if it's not organic avocado, I don't eat it. I try not to eat anything that's not organic. Why? Because I'm throwing away my money. If it costs cheap, it's cheap. Cheap food is cheap. Is that hard to understand? No. Your labor to labor. I want to put the food in and get the benefit of my money. I don't want to put the food in and it costs me to get sick. I'm trying to stay healthy. Amen? So you labor. So in Isaiah 58 verse 1, notice it, cry loud, spare not. Lift up thy voice like a trumpet and show my people their transgression and the house of Jacob their sin. So we're the house of Jacob, and we want to hate the heritage of Jacob as it ends. And he said, these people seek me daily to know my ways. If a nation did righteousness and forsook not the ordinances of God, they ask of me ordinances of justice, and they take delight in approaching to God. So these are people who are devoted people. These are people who are righteous people, and they want to know God. They want to know about God's justice and judgment. So here I'm sharing with you my understanding of it. Wherefore have we fasted, say day, and thou seest not? Wherefore have we afflicted our soul, and thou takest no knowledge? Behold, in the day of their fast they find pleasure, and exact all your labors. So what's happening here? These are religious people. They're devoted. They fast. They afflict their soul. So somebody say, oh, so they're doing what they're doing, what you said them to do, Lloyd. You just said in Leviticus that they should do this. Yes, but notice here, when they do this, they're afflicting their labors. They're exacting their labors. The proper translation of that, I know I can't press a button on my phone and get it translated. But the proper explanation of that is that they're cutting their laborers' income and not paying their laborers enough. Remember, we're in the antitypical day of atonement. There's enough money to pay your laborers. So the Christians shouldn't do this. Now think about it. What states in America are fighting to not make the minimum wage go up? What states in America don't want the minimum wage to go up? Or what group of people don't want the minimum wage to go up? Isn't it conservative Christians? Isn't it conservative Christians want people to come and stay illegal in the country, but yet they know they need the work of the people? Isn't it conservative Christians who want people to work for free and not pay them or pay them small amount of money? In James chapter 5, which we're not going to read, but you can go there later on your own, you're going to find James 5 says, is that they're robbing the workers. So the workers who mow the lawn and reap their fields, they don't pay them enough money. So how does that work? A person's working, you know the job should pay $8 an hour, you pay them $4 an hour. You know the job should pay $10 an hour, you pay them $5. Or if you're 50, you pay them $7.50. So every hour they work, you're robbing them. But it's a soft theft because they signed up for it. They came illegally to get the job, but you invited them to go and get the job, and you know they need it because remember, America never picked its own cotton. You always had some illegal or somebody on a slave pick his cotton, but they don't want to pay. That's what slavery was. Slavery was you don't pay. The person work under duress or force of debt, and you don't pay. So this is one of the original sins of America. But what has been happening recently? Because remember, these are religious folk. We're not talking about the pagans, because the pagans, for the most part, the sodomites and the infidels and stuff like that, they want to raise the wage. So people say they're bleeding out liberals. But the Christians down south, who poor as ever, they don't want to raise the wage because they like that free labor and that cheap labor. Well, what's been happening? Notice inflation and the drug problem in America is causing so many people to can't find workers. So the people who are working now are forced to, the employers are forced now to pay their workers more. Isn't that something? But for years we've been fighting with it, and here come, boom, what happened? There's a situation happening between COVID and retirement, because most people are talking about retirement. They keep talking about COVID. But COVID is not the only thing. Retirement is also part of the thing, because as more people come out of the workforce, and the birth rate has dropped in America, as you have seen the statistics in the last few weeks, we have a problem. There's not enough people to replace that workforce. So truck driver is down by 30%. There's people in the medical industry, they're having a problem employing. People in the lumber industry, they're having a problem employing. All these industries are having a problem because there's not enough replacement for them. So what happened now? The people who are working, they're forced to have to pay them more. Bravo. Because what happened? God is on the throne. Because God said, listen, I'm not for you to rob the people. Even though my people, who call themselves Christians, want to rob the people, and they're poor anyhow because they're poor states, and they like that oppressive way because their forefathers were slave owners. So they still have that oppressive mindset. I'm going to fix the problem. So now what's happening? Jobs that used to pay $10 now have to be up in their ante, paying $12, $15 an hour. They have to put up the wages anyhow. Because if they don't, the people in those jobs are going to be able to go somewhere else. So when God says make an offering by sacrifice, I don't want to give the money up, but I'm doing myself a favor. Doing myself a favor. I don't want to do it because my nature is selfish. And I want it all for myself. But when I do it because the Lord said that I do it by faith, and I cease from my own way of thinking and I yoke up with Christ, I bless myself. Because what happened? I pay somebody a little extra money. They're going to be happy. They're going to be thankful. They're going to serve me better. And they're going to be happy anyhow. Stop forget about even they serving you better. They're going to be happy because they get a little bit extra money. And they can go enjoy some life. When Thanksgiving comes around or July 4th comes around, they can bring their family down the Delaware Gap. And they can go do a little cookout and enjoy the Delaware Gap right there on the border between New Jersey and New York. They can go there July 4th and see if they're down there enjoying themselves. Because you pay them a little extra. Right? So God is working this out. Because remember, no matter what they had fought over here to not bring slavery to an end, it came to an end. No matter how much they have fought to not bring Jim Crow to an end, it came to an end. I'm going to tell you, no matter what they're doing, things are going to happen that the laborers they have to increase the labor rate. But yet these are religious folks. And so what I'm saying here is this: when we enter into rest, one of the things is that the odd people around us must enter into rest too. They must enjoy some of the benefits also. We enter into rest, they enter into rest. If you cease from your labors and you start to do holiness, you find that the people around you are going to enter into rest. Whatever sin is afflicting you right now, whatever thing that is hurting you, if you overcome it, you are blessing yourself. As I've said before, think about the calculation. I know it's easier said than done. Think about the calculation. If you burn energy excessively and you figure out ways to cut your energy costs, who are you benefiting? Yourself, or are you benefiting somebody else? Who are you doing a favor? If you can drive a car and it costs you, say, $500 less a year to drive the car, and over 6 years just save $3,000, who did you benefit? Yourself, or are you doing somebody else a favor? You're doing yourself a favor. Again, do the math on it. If you're eating for 2 people, you cut back and eat for 1 person. Who are you benefiting? You just save yourself how much $1,000 every year. Plus the health benefit. Plus the energy you're going to gain from it. You're benefiting you. So yes, somebody could think, oh no, if I take care of my workers, that's going to be a bad thing. How? How if Jeff Bezos or any of these people pay taxes, because they don't, and how if they pay the workers a little bit more money, how is it going to stop them? What are they going to do with all these billions? Because it might July something or August or whenever go up into that plane and crash and burn up like many people have others. And then what? What does gain a man if he gain the whole world but lose his soul? We only here for a short period of time. And so God is showing us that if we do these things that it might seem counter our character and our natural traits and bad behavior, it will help us live a happier life. It will help us live a happier life. And we here for a short period of time, the journey will be lighter. It doesn't mean that we don't plow. It doesn't mean we don't plow that field with the other oxen, which is Jesus. We use our muscle, but just by having somebody next to us, which really is the God of the universe, what it is to make it lighter. So we do it His way. So when God says, "Listen, return a faithful tithe," it shouldn't be a tithe by fire, but if you're new, it might be a tithe by fire. But you learn to support righteousness in the earth. If you give an offering, you help the poor, people who are suffering, real poor, worthy poor, not people make themselves poor because they're taking all their money and giving it to drug dealers. What are you doing for yourself? You're blessing yourself. Because what you're learning is you're learning the principle of kindness, the principle of supporting causes on this earth. You support the cause of blessing others. That does something for you. And in this life, we have material possession, but life is more than material possession. What happened if you learn some self-control and self-discipline? Who are you blessing? Where you're not controlled by sin and so forth. You're blessing others. And so we need to bless others and we need to bless ourselves. And when we become a blessing, we live the happiest life. Remember, the Holy Convocation was to connect with each other. Think about how many people, as I said, this weekend will kill themselves because they're lonely. Think about how many people this weekend, pardon me dear, will think about how many people this weekend will not only kill themselves because they're lonely, just a little bit, not only kill themselves, almost there, a few more minutes to go. I'll close off at 6 here. Sorry for that, just a little water here. Just think about the amount of people this weekend, right? Thanks, sister. Thanks so much. Think about the amount of people this weekend that literally they're so lonely and they're so unkind and they're not going to kill themselves, they're just going to die and that'll be in their life. They couldn't share, they couldn't congregate with the brethren. They're totally unfriendly. And yet their life is sad. But yet God says it's a holy convocation. That's why I believe in church. I believe in connecting with others. Because selfishness makes you just want to be about yourself. It's about me and my family and myself. But when you start seeing other people, especially the poor, the stranger, the fatherless, the widow, a source, a receptacle for blessing, not to be abused, then what it is, you now are becoming a blessing and you live a happier life. And you strike at that selfishness inside of you. Who want it all for yourself. You want it one for me, one for me, one for me, one for me, and that's all you want to count. One for me, one for me. But God says, you say one for me, one for me, one, and you reach 9, and you say one for the Lord. You start counting again, one for me, one for me. I say, wait a minute. One for the Lord, one for offering. 8 for me. And you start learning, I don't have to take it all for myself. You can say, wait a minute, I have a family member, and I need to do one for my family member, one for my poor friend, one for somebody need a blessing, somebody need a gift. And somebody say, well, why am I doing that? I don't have to do that. Well, die with your money. Die miserable. To me, the whole plan of the convocations, the Holy Convocation, was for people to be able to bring other people and do a feast with them from their own resources. To bless somebody, because we have one life to live, and sometimes it's just good to put a smile on somebody's face. Sometimes it's good to open up our home and say, come and eat. And somebody like, I'll eat that right, I have to pay for my food. You don't have to pay, just come and eat. It's all free. And you don't have to do anything for me in return. I'm just giving it. This is my gift. Because God is teaching me to strike at my selfishness. And when I do this, I can take a rest. But there's some people, the evildoers and the wicked in the Psalm and Proverbs says, if they can't get it all, they can't be happy if you got something. They want it all for themselves. It's all about them. There's some people today, they can't rest because if they're not drunk, They can't do something. I say, look, I must stay sober for my children. I must stay sober for my wife. I must stay sober because I want somebody else to be happy. It's all about their happiness. And if they're not happy, they don't care about nobody else. And those people are never happy. And they'll be forever drunk. They'll be forever hooked up on drugs because their life is all about them. They don't see their life as blessing others. But in so blessing others, we bless ourselves. So notice here, just a few more and then I'll stop. Behold, ye is fast for strife and debate and for smite of the fist of wickedness. Ye shall not fast as you do this day to make your voice be heard on high. There's a group that I used to know of. They kind of debunked now. A few years ago, there was a group called the 2520 people. And interesting enough, a lot of these texts that we will study, they will use those texts just to do a time prophecy and a chart prophecy. And why I find them so interesting and funny, and I also find it strange, because they will go to the Bible and go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28. Deuteronomy chapter 28 is a blessings and cursing. And they say, oh no, it's not about blessing and cursing, it's about some number business, 2520. And that's how they will calculate it. So I remember seeing this. And I look at this and I notice it says they fast for wickedness and strife and debate. And I said, that's so interesting and fascinating because they're doing religiosity, but they go into the Bible and they go have a fight over something that has nothing to do with reality. We try to preach reality. I'm encouraging you, do reality. Reality is that the gospel and the salvation is supposed to benefit your life and benefit you personally. You're not supposed to be some head knowledge that has nothing to do with reality. And notice it says, is not a fast that I've chosen a day for a man to afflict his soul? Is it a fast I've chosen a day for a man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down his head as a bulrush and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Wilt thou call this a fast and accept the day of the Lord? Is not this the fast that I've chosen? To loose the band of wickedness and to undo the heavy burdens and to let the oppressed go free and that ye break every yoke. So what's happening there? God is saying, listen, the fast that I've chosen, when I tell you to afflict your soul, I want you to help the poor. Notice what's the struggle in Christianity right now. What was the struggle in the Dark Ages? What is the struggle right now in Christianity, especially Southern Christianity? Is that if you tell them anything to do with the poor, it hurts their feeling. That's the struggle with Christianity right now. You go to a person that's supposed to be Bible religion and they hate of the poor. Anything to go to the poor, you kill them. But yet God says, no, your fast is that you sacrifice the food that you would not eat, you give it to somebody else. The money that you could spend on discretionary spending, you say, no, I pay Netflix, I have enough of my money, I'm going to give some of it to the poor. And when you do this, what it is, you're blessing yourself. And he says, notice here, is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry? And that thou bring the poor that are cast out. The word here, cast out, is very important, that phrase cast out, because here it is primarily talking about those who are God's people that has been abused for whatever reason. If some of God's people end up losing their jobs because of the COVID vaccine requirement, we have to be there to support them. That's who he's talking about, right? Not talking about taking money and giving it to people who are wasting money on drugs and alcohol. We're talking about people who are suffering because of right, because they stood for the right. They stood that they're not going to be put in a genetically engineered matter in themselves. Even when many of the church leaders are supporting this madness. So notice here. So this is becoming a problem as the months roll by. But if the numbers go up, the numbers last week in America was flat. The numbers never go up or down. It was flat. Numbers went down by 0.02%. So that would say it stopped. If the numbers are going in the opposite direction, then all this talk about vaccine going to go to the side. But we see for now. Notice here, is not to deal bread to the hungry, and that to bring the poor that are cast out to thy house. When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh. Then shall thy light break forth as the morning, and thy health spring forth speedily. And thy righteousness shall go before thee. So you're doing right, not just God. And the glory of the Lord shall be thy real reward. So we stop there. So in summary, we enter into an atonement, a day of atonement experience. Why we enter into that day of atonement experience? Because as we enter into that experience, we're striking at the selfishness that makes our life so miserable. Show me a miserable, depressed, suicidal person, and I'll show you a person very insensitive to the suffering of others, very cold and callous, and very unfriendly. What we do, we strike at that as we go into affliction. We convocate with other people. We learn to be with other people, but in holiness. Because again, a lot of people who are depressed also is because they've been burnt in these unholy alliances and conferences and places that they go. But we enter into holy convocation with others, especially on Sabbath and for retreats and stuff like that, which we're not doing right now. We afflict our souls. What it is in our diet or lifestyle, we don't take it all and eat it all. We don't be gluttonous. We don't be greedy. We count, and some for us, some for the Lord's work, some for offering, some for the poor. We make sure that somebody is being blessed by us. Why? Because again, it strikes at selfishness. We don't do life our way. We do life God's way. We figure out how God would do this. What would Jesus do? Pastor Webman always bring that up. What would Jesus do? And you do this how God would do it. You figure out God would do it. You do that. Christ says, listen, love your neighbor as yourself. That's affliction. Because selfishness tell me to love me. God says, love people the way you'd want to be loved. Love people treat people the way you want to be treated. And when we do this, it strikes at our selfishness. It goes against our carnal, sinful nature. And it helps us to live a happier life because what happened? We're happiest with people. Not just with material possession. Material possession give us comfort. But we're happy with people. And we want to be able to have holy convocation with people. We want to be able to bless the poor. We don't want the poor to be suffering. When Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever they're celebrating, and they can have a good time. They too are supposed to be able to eat, especially if we're talking about the working poor. Because that's what the Bible focuses on. The Bible don't talk about people who are bums. The Bible talking about people who are working poor, not somebody who can't get a job. The Bible talking about people who can't get a job and they don't want a job. The Bible don't talk about those. The Bible is talking about people who are working or they can't work because of some other reason. And so we want somebody, if somebody work for us, an honest day labor, an honest day pay. We're not going to overpay and we're not going to underpay. And when we do that, it's strike at our selfishness, but also we make people happy because they have something to take home to their family and we have something to take home to our family, or we get the joy of getting their labor. So we do that in life, and this will help us to enter into rest. Think about it. I always think about it, that the slave owners never have rest. Thieves, criminal, Ponzi schemers, people who build multi-level marketing strategies, they don't get rest because they're constantly thinking about ripping off people. I just like to bind off the work, do my honest day labor, and the money that comes to me, the accolades, the blessing come to me, is deserved. I get it, I work for it, it's done. I don't have to have no conscience worried about I rip somebody off, I rob from somebody, none of that. I put the day's labor in and I take the pay for what I get, and that's it. So I tell you, I want you to enter into rest, the Sabbath rest. I want you to enter into atonement with God, to become one with God. This is how you become one with God. More we're going to talk about next Sabbath. I appreciate you being here. At this time, tomorrow we'll sing our closing hymn. May God bless you very much. Thanks.
Please take your hymnals in hand and turn to hymn number 329. Take the world, but give me Jesus. Our closing hymn will be hymn number 329. Hymn number 329. Take the world, but give me Jesus. All its joys are but a name, but his love abideth ever through eternal years the same. Oh, the height and depth of mercy, oh, the length and breadth of love, oh, the fullness of redemption, pledge of endless life above. Take the world, but give me Jesus, sweetest comfort of my soul. With my Savior watching o'er me, I can sing though billows roll. Oh, the height and depth of mercy, oh, the length and breadth of love, oh, the fullness of redemption, pledge of life above. Take the world, but give me Jesus. Let me view his constant smile. Then throughout my pilgrim journey, light will cheer me all the while. Oh, the height and depth of mercy, oh, the length and breadth of love, oh, the fullness of redemption, pledge of endless life above. Take the world, but give me Jesus. In his cross my trust shall be, till with clearer, brighter vision, face to face my Lord I see. Oh, the height and depth of mercy, oh, the length and breadth of love, oh, the fullness of redemption, pledge of endless life above. Let us bow our heads for the closing prayer. Dear kind, gracious, loving Father, Lord, I pray that as we are soon to end the Sabbath, Lord, that the things we've heard this day may not leave our minds. Lord, I pray especially that you will help us to come in at 1 minute with Thee. And Lord, that as we come in at 1 minute with Thee, that we will also be merciful to the poor, that we will be kind to those who are in need of our kindness, and we will bless those around us. I pray this prayer, Lord, in Thy Son's holy name. Amen. Thank you for joining us for this Sabbath. Thank you for spending this Bible study with us, and I pray that you will enjoy the remaining moments of the Sabbath. And I also pray that the Lord's blessing will be upon you as we are soon to enter a new week. Happy Sabbath, and I pray we'll see each other again next Sabbath.